Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Kodanitai Maya Poshashi, Kodanitai Maya Poshashi. Jaya Shital Sina, Shital Sina, Shital Sina, Shital Sina. Yayo Girid Harila, Girid Harila, Girid Harila, Girid Harila. Jaya Nisingadev, 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 Nisingadev. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Vrinda Devi, Vrinda Devi, Vrinda Devi. Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Prabhupada. Iskon Guru Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Kodanitai Maya Poshashi ki jai. No, thank you. Trying to stay Pujari clean. Reading from Srila Prabhupada, Lilamrita, the concentrated essence of the nectar. The sky, which had been a clear blue, turned hazy as the first moisture arrived. Between noon and 4 p.m., the ground was too hot for bare feet, and the residents of Vrindavan would stay home, confining most of their activity to either the morning or the late afternoon and evening. Even eating was excluded from the midday hours, since the heat killed the appetite. The Jamuna was shallow and hot, giving little relief. The cows were gaunt from lack of grass and feed, and occasionally hot, searing winds raised dust clouds. Flies and mosquitoes died in the air. One of the few pleasant features of summer was the fragrance of bale flowers that climbed along the walls around Prabhupada's garden, somehow thriving in the dry heat. In the first days of June, Srila Prabhupada experienced some hope of recovery. He asked to resume his morning rides, and when being brought down to the car, he said, "Soon I will get down and walk myself." His old friend from Allahabad, Dr. Ghosh, came and diagnosed his disease as anxiety for the devotees of the Krishna consciousness movement. Srila Prabhupada agreed, but he didn't follow the doctor's orders, since they included having his blood pressure checked regularly and taking various medicines and special treatments. But by receiving massages from his servants, he felt he was improving. At this rate, he said, he would be all right after a month and a half, but he stressed, "I am not leaving Vrindavan until I am well." Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Vasudevaya. Reading from the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 1, entitled The Supreme Lord is equal to all. Text 9. Jyotir Adya Ivabhati. Jyotir Adya Ivabhati. Sangatan na vivichyate. Sanghatan na vivichyate. Vidanti atmanam atma stam. Vedantyatmanam atmastam. Matitva kavayo tata. Matatitva kavayo tata. Jyote ade ivabhati. Sangatana vividyate. Vidanyatmanan atmasta. Mahitva kavayo nata. Jyotir adya ivabhati. Sangatana vividyate. Vidanyatmanam atmastam. Matitva kavayo nita. Bolo. Ivabhati. Sangatana vividyate. Vidantyatmanam atmastam. Mahidva kavayonita. Prapyate vabhati. Sangatana vividyate. Vidantyatmanam atmastam. Mahidva kavayonita. Would any of the ladies like to? Or the lady? Jyoti, fire. Adi, and other elements. Eva, just as. Abhati, appear. Sangatat, from the bodies of demigods and others. Na, not. Vividyate, are distinguished. Vedanti, perceive. Atmanam, the supersoul. Atmastam, situated in the heart. Mahitva, by discerning, Kavaya, expert thinkers. Antata, within. Translation. The all-pervading personality of Godhead exists within the heart of every living being, and an expert thinker can perceive how he is present there to a large or small extent. Just as one can understand the supply of fire and wood, the water in a water pot, or the sky within a pot, one can understand whether a living entity is a demon or a demigod by understanding that living entity's devotional performances. A thoughtful man can understand how much a person is favored by the Supreme Lord by seeing his actions. Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki. In Bhagavad Gita 10:41, the Lord says, Yad Yad Vibhuti Mat Sattvam Srimad Ujititam Evava Tad Tad Eva Bhagachatam Mama Tejo Mishya Sambhavam. Know that all beautiful, glorious, and mighty creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. We have the practical experience of seeing that one person is able to do very wonderful things, whereas another cannot do those same things, and cannot even do things that require only a little common sense. Therefore, how much a devotee has been favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be tested by the activities the devotee has performed. In Bhagavad Gita 10:10, the Lord also says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pratipavakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and who worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. This is very practical. A teacher instructs the student if the student is capable of taking more and more instructions. Otherwise, in spite of being instructed by the teacher, the student cannot make strides in his understanding that has nothing to do with partiality. Okay, so this is a long purport. I think I'll break here and then continue on. That's okay. Om Jnana Timiranda Shagananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhastam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaura Bhattarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the all-pervading personality of God exists within every living being. And according to how expert a thinker you are, you're able to appreciate that to one degree or another. Just as one can understand the supply of fire and wood. But I thought that's a nice example. You can, if you're a thoughtful person, you can appreciate it's like, I'm just getting my boiler fixed right now, and there's a chance it may not feed through the radiators, which saves a lot of money in winter. And when I'm looking at the wood, I'm looking at the potential in that wood to keep me warm in the winter. So the ability to see the potential of something. So the scientist would, perhaps the material scientist would look at material nature and say, well, I don't see God anywhere there. And because he's not an expert thinker, he doesn't see the potential of God's presence as you would fire in wood. Although you can't see any fire in wood, if you take the wood over, there's no fire there. But you can see the potential of fire being in wood. So that's a nice example. Whereas the alternative is there is no God and everything's random, and which doesn't really work because we used to do this review at the end of the year, and we'd have these different skits, and one of them was a family called the Chancers, Mr. and Mrs. Chancer, and they were living life as if everything was by chance. So Mr. Chancer comes home, he says, "What's for dinner tonight, darling?" She says, "Well, I've put seaweed, a few buckets of mud, and half a teaspoon of sand in the wash machine, and it's on spin. So give it about half an hour, and it should be apple crumble and custard." "Oh, sounds delicious, darling." But you can't live. You have to have everything has to be organized. You're going to have to get the the ingredients for the rhubarb crumble, or there will be no rhubarb crumble that night. So it seems everything is by chance outside of the world that I exist in, where, if Mr. Chancellor comes home and the house is pink, what happened there? I think a can must have exploded somewhere up the road, and the wind must have blown it up, and it's just gone on the walls. There's never any, within our immediate purview, nothing. We don't accept anything happening by chance. If my money's been stolen, and the police say, well, it was probably by chance. Well, no, there must have been someone that did it. But suddenly, that logic doesn't extend beyond the purview of our senses. Conveniently, anything outside of that is by chance and doesn't need an explanation. But anything within the purview of our existence needs to be explained. Everything has to be accountable. So the living entity that's thoughtful can appreciate that God is there. And then he goes on to say, when a living entity is a demon or a demigod, you can understand by his devotional performances. And a thoughtful man can understand how a person is favored by the Supreme Lord by seeing his actions. And then Srila Prabhupada goes on to say that all the glorious and mighty creations spring from a spark of my splendor. So there's a tendency very much in society now that they will idolize a person, put him on a pedestal, and glorify him as something really, really special, and then take great pleasure in knocking him down off that same pedestal. And they put somebody up, worship him, and then drag him down. Put somebody else up, worship him, and then drag him down. So this is what's going on. Whereas this wouldn't happen if a society was trained and cultivated nicely according to Vedic culture, Varnashram. Then they would appreciate that this is, when somebody is very talented or capable, this is a display of the favor he's received from God. So they would always understand that God is the real doer behind everything, and that those 5 factors of action that are referred to in the Bhagavad Gita, of which the sanction of the Supersoul is the ultimate cause. One who's able to appreciate that doesn't over-glorify somebody, understands, well, it's nice that you're doing this, it's nice that you're very talented. Obviously, you've been blessed by the Lord. You must have done something very pious in a past life to receive this. And that can all just run out. That can all just finish at any time. The Lord can give you ability and facility, and at any time you can take it. So if you're feeling, well, I'm not sure if this is going to be good then, because maybe it'll run out. Okay, I'm really good right now. So then it's advised, Tesham Satata Yuktanam, constantly devote yourself. And then Krishna will give the understanding. And ultimately, that's all we really want, isn't it? We don't want, okay, we can have some nice talent and some nice ability, but what use is any of that if it doesn't lead to understanding, which will take us to Krishna? It's another aspect of ignorance. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains all the different items of knowledge. And besides these, whatever they may be, is ignorance. It's another form of ignoring God. Nescience. So in spite of being instructed by the teacher, the student cannot make strides in his understanding. So I was just listening to a class by Abhiram Prabhu in Hungary, and he was saying that there are some families in the south of India. He's preaching in the south of India, in Rajasthan. That's South India, isn't it, Rajasthan? No, Central? Oh, Northwest, okay. And he was saying that the families there have been following Varnashram, some of them anyway, very strictly. And the children are Shrutidar. The guru can read through a passage of slokas for like 5 minutes and then ask the child, and the child can repeat it verbatim, having only heard it once. So that's a good student. So the partiality point is coming up again. This is very practical. A teacher instructs the student if the student is capable of taking more and more instructions. Otherwise, in spite of being instructed by the teacher, The student cannot make strides in his understanding. This has nothing to do with partiality. When Krishna says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pratipavagam dadami bodhiyogam tam, this indicates that Krishna is prepared to give back the yoga to everyone, but one must be capable of receiving it. That is the secret. Thus, when a person exhibits wonderful devotional activities, a thoughtful man understands that Krishna has been more favorable to this devotee. Okay, I'll leave that for now. This is not difficult to understand, but envious persons do not accept that Krishna has bestowed his favor upon a particular devotee in accordance with his advanced position. Such foolish persons become envious and try to minimize an advanced devotee's activities. That is not Vaishnavism. A Vaishnava should appreciate the service rendered to the Lord by other Vaishnavas. Therefore, a Vaishnava is described in Srimad Bhagavatam as Nimatsara. Vaishnavas are never envious of other Vaishnavas or of anyone else, and therefore they are called Nimatsaranam Satam. So that's interesting. If you have an inability to appreciate that the Lord has favored this devotee, and he deserves that. And it sounds a little bit like Srila Prabhupada referring to maybe what happened to him when he came over, and some of his godbrothers didn't appreciate what Srila Prabhupada had done. So to be able to do that means Krishna Shakti, the Krishna Shakti has been bestowed upon Srila Prabhupada, and he's been able to achieve amazing results. Which is Abhiram was saying, actually, when we think of Srila Prabhupada, we should always remember in the context of how much he took a crazy risk to come over in the first place, and he should have died, and that was why Suraji didn't want him to go onto the ship. She was saying, "You'll be dead if you'll be a dead man if you go on this," and he did almost die. It was like a crazy risk that he took out of his love for his spiritual master and his compassion for the living entities. Srila Prabhupada took that risk, and although he was on the verge of death when he came over, Abhiram Prabhu was making the point, he gave so many life. He gave so many millions. He lit the life of hope in their hearts into so many millions, although he was so close to death himself. So phenomenal. Just to survive the voyage in itself was phenomenal. But then to come over and then to do so much in such a short space of time is something that we want to appreciate fully in our lifetime, what Srila Prabhupada has done. They say that the demigods will be able to appreciate because they can see what's going to happen over the next 10,000 years, what Srila Prabhupada has set into motion. So to be envious of that, or to in any way belittle or diminish the significance of what's happened there, is a sign of enviousness. It's not a sign of a Vaishnava. And so sometimes if you hear a devotee complaining, you could ask, is this born of envy, or is this born of the devotee's ability to appreciate the Lord's kindness in bestowing mercy upon his devotees? Envious persons do not accept that Krishna has bestowed his favor. So it's interesting, isn't it? In the association of devotees, that's when we find out who the envious ones are. You wouldn't know if you weren't in the association of devotees whether you were envious or not. It's like a kind of acid test, how to go from Kanishta to Majjhima. The Majjhima is somebody that's an artist have been practically much removed, and he can navigate quite skillfully in the association of the devotees with the whole spectrum of different devotees. He understands where the devotee is at and how to relate to that devotee in such ways to encourage him. As Bhagavad Gita informs us, one can understand how one is saturated with sattva gun, rajagun, or tamagun. In the examples given here, with fire represents the mode of goodness, one can understand the constitution of a container for wood, petrol, or other inflammable substances by the quantity of the fire. Similarly, water represents Rajagun, the mode of passion. A small skin and the vast Atlantic Ocean both contain water. And by seeing the quantity of water in a container, one can understand the size of the container. The sky represents the mode of ignorance. The sky is present in a small earthen pot and is also in outer space. Thus, by proper judgment, one can see who is a devata or a demigod, who is an asura, yaksha or rakshasa, according to the qualities of sattvagun, rajagun, and tamagun. One can judge whether a person is, read that again. A sane man can understand this by the activities of such a person performs. A general description is given in the Padma Purana. Vishnu Bhakta Smriti Deva Asuras Tad Viparayaya. A devotee of Lord Vishnu is a demigod, whereas an asura or yaksha is just the opposite. An asura is not a devotee of Lord Vishnu. Instead, for his sense gratification, he is a devotee of the demigods, bhutas, pretas, and so on. That's one can judge who is a devata, who is a rakshasa, and who is an asura by how they conduct their activities. The word Atmanam in this verse means Paramatmanam. The Paramatma or Super Soul is situated in the core of everyone's heart. Antata. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 1861. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hrideshi Arjuna Tishtati. The Ishvara, the Supreme Personality of God, being situated in everyone's heart, gives directions to everyone in terms of one's capabilities in taking the instructions. The instructions of Bhagavad Gita are open to everyone, but some people understand them properly, whereas others understand them so improperly that they cannot even believe in the existence of Krishna, although reading Krishna's book. Although the Gita says, Sri Bhagavanu Vacha, indicating that Krishna spoke, they cannot understand Krishna. This is due to their misfortune or incapability, which is caused by Rajagun and Tamagun, the modes of passion and ignorance. It is because of these modes that they cannot even understand Krishna, whereas an advanced devotee like Arjuna understands him and glorifies him, saying, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Param Bhavam. You are the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Abode and Purifier. Krishna is open to everyone, but one needs the capability to understand him. So that's really interesting, isn't it? When we have the educational system, and they're not asking the kids, what mode of nature are you in, and how can we situate you? You know, the preliminary step for education is let's situate you in the mode of goodness. Otherwise, it's not gonna go through. It's going to get filtered by the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance, and the real information won't be grasped properly. One in the mode of goodness, all the gates are illuminated by knowledge. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's explained. So all the methods of perception, one's able to see things in its proper perspective. And then if that's not there, if that purification is not there, then all that time and energy is wasted. It's actually, it's not only is it wasted, it's actually counterproductive. It's taking the living entity further away from the goal. And then there's no guarantee that if you've been educated in the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance, that you're not going to have mental health problems. Just acquiring knowledge and being able to regurgitate it doesn't free you from the psychological problems of functioning in the mode of ignorance and in the mode of passion. So isn't that interesting that the educational system can cause mental health problems? Churning out little cogs to be used in an economic mechanism that have no perception of any higher cause other than fulfilling their desires. And it's a very dysfunctional system, because I remember when I was in the educational system for a little while, and it doesn't really prepare you for integrating with the real world. So some of them just get caught in the educational system. They don't want to go out. They just want to stay in this synthetic world where you can just sit around and armchair philosophize all day and not do anything and just complain about this. And, you know, a lot of these marches, it's all these students turning up that aren't going to do anything about it, but they're all moaning, this is not the right way, this is not the right way. And we turn and say, okay, guys, You show us what to do. Well, we don't know what to do, but we know it's definitely not that. So how do you take the living entity in the educational system and prepare him for being able to function in a dynamic way in society? How would you be able to do that? You'd have to bring him into the mode of goodness, teach him respect, cleanliness, integrity, commitment, accountability. These are really dirty words now, aren't they? Prabhu, you were supposed to turn up at this time. Why were you not here at this time? Prabhu, I don't get on my case. I was just spaced out. I don't. Sorry, Prabhu. Nobody. Prabhupada describes material attachment. One of the components of material attachment is fear of a personal identity. Nobody wants to get pinned down. You said you would do this. You married this woman. You committed. You took the vow. Yeah. At the time, I felt like I don't feel like it anymore. So nobody wants to be a person, because a person means you're accountable. So they'd sooner be impersonal and just merge with the wall. Oh, I don't know who I don't know. Must have spaced out. Oh, okay. So that's a grungy payoff. The grungy is don't get in my case because I'm not really accountable. And then because of that, then I can kind of go around in a spaced out, isolated situation where nobody can really interact with me. So I desensitize myself. That's the grungy. And the payoff is now nobody can get on my case. I can just float around like a cloud. So, okay, we'll take away your personal identity, and now you're just a kind of homogeneous blob, and you can do things when you feel like, and if you don't feel like, don't worry, no one's going to get on your case. But unfortunately, you lose your personal existence. Confirmed. Shishi Kodanitai Maya Pashashi Ki Jai. Any questions or comments? Or shall I go on with the purport? I've only got a bit more. By external features, one can understand who is favored by Krishna and who is not. According to one's attitude, Krishna becomes one's direct advisor, or Krishna becomes unknown. This is not Krishna's partiality. It is his response to one's ability to understand him. You can come up with your question in a minute. It's an interesting word, understand. It always reminds me of Govardhan, because you lift Govardhan up, and then those that understand stand under, and they get the understanding, the shelter of understanding. Because to understand, you have to be humble to take shelter. You're taking shelter of Krishna, who's the source of knowledge. You can't do that in a challenging way. If you want to understand, Krishna has to reveal. So only if you're humble, then Krishna will reciprocate. And that's your attitude. It's not Krishna's partiality. It's his response. According to one's receptiveness, whether he's a Devata, Asura, Yaksha, Rakshasa, Krishna's quality is proportionally exhibited. The proportionate exhibition of Krishna's power is misunderstood by less intelligent men to be Krishna's partiality, but actually it is no such thing. Krishna is equal to everyone, and according to one's ability to receive the favor of Krishna, one advances in Krishna consciousness. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur gives a practical example in this connection. In the sky, there are many luminaries. At night, even in darkness, the moon is extremely brilliant and can be directly perceived. The sun is also extremely brilliant. When covered by clouds, however, these luminaries are not distinctly visible. Similarly, the more one advances in Sattva-gun, the more his brilliance is exhibited by devotional service. But the more one is covered by Raja-gun and Tama-gun, the less visible his brilliance, for he is covered by these qualities. The visibility of one's qualities does not depend on the partiality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is due to various coverings in different proportions. Thus, one cannot understand how far he is advanced in terms of Sattva-gun. Thus one can understand how far he is advanced in terms of Sattva-gun and how much he is covered by Raja-gun and Tama-gun. Any questions or comments? Yes, Panchatattva Prabhu. Um, so he says, according to one's attitude, Krishna becomes one's direct advisor, or Krishna becomes unknown. Yeah, well, there's a certain amount of momentum, isn't it? Like if you pull the plug out of the fan, uh, and so you've done your bit, you've pulled the plug out of the fan, but now you're going to have to wait because there's a certain amount of momentum there. So you may have some really bad conditioning and some really major disqualifications. It doesn't disqualify you from pulling the plug, but then it's up to you. Then are you going to be patient and wait? Or are you going to start getting a bit uppity with Krishna? That look, I've been doing this now for. I've been chopping the potatoes now for 2 hours. I should be. Where's the ecstasy? Or are you prepared to be patient and understand? Okay, well, I've been doing a lot of other things far from chopping the potatoes for goodness knows how many lifetimes, and there's a momentum that's built up. It's going to take some time before Krishna wants to bestow his favor. It's not so cheap and easy that it will just, I think I'll have Krishna. And it's just going to be like that. And it's a cultivation, isn't it? It's like I'm growing little flowers, well, little seeds. They're going to be big flowers, actually. And I have to just be patient. And the conditions, some of the pots I'm putting them in have got better soil than others. So some of them are shooting up really fast and some of them aren't shooting up that fast. So the situation, the environment that they're being cultivated in is going to have an effect on how well they grow, And the ones that aren't growing that well, they're just going to have to be patient. And you're going to have to be patient as well. Like with the spiritual master, he's got disciples. He's got a whole spectrum of disciples, all in different levels of conditioning. And he has to be patient with those who are more heavily conditioned than others, And of course, what helps is if you realize these are growing better than these ones, let me put them all in the same environment so they all get the same association, and then they'll all start to flourish. And that's why the association of devotees that are fixed, Majjhima, Adhikari, they're a real shelter. They can give real shiksha, because they've established themselves, they've cultivated a certain level, and then they can help speed up the process for others that are maybe struggling with conditioning, and they can show them how to see that differently. Your conditioning is also related to your beliefs, what you believe, how much faith you have, and those beliefs can be sabotaging your attempt to practice Krishna consciousness, or you can change your beliefs, and you can have beliefs which are going to propel you in your Krishna consciousness. You have to look at what when you say you're out on Sankirtan and it's not happening so well, and then these beliefs are coming up that you're not really qualified, you're not really worthy, you can't really do this, they're not going to help. And then there are other beliefs you can have that Lord Chaitanya is merciful, some amazing thing can happen, a person can come along and be very receptive, and then I'll be so enlivened and I want to keep going out and doing book distribution. And your ability to choose your beliefs is also determined by your ability to remember, because Krishna does give us a lot of mercy, actually. And the problem is we forget. We get covered over and we forget. We're given insights, epiphanies, so many far things. We don't write them down. We don't carve them into the psyche of our memory so that they stay forever, So that's the challenge is, are you going to forget? Are you going to become forgetful in your relationship with Krishna, or can you remember it? Can you proactively push through the ignorance? I mean, the mode of ignorance really means the mode of forgetfulness. It's really what it is. And then the mode of passion is kind of partial remembrance. And the mode of goodness is everything's very clear. And when you learn something, you learn it for good, It's set aside. And then you go into the next lesson and the next lesson. Not this going backwards and forwards all the time. You break through and then you forget, and you break through and then you forget. And this toing and froing, which is really what Anatta Nivritti, till you get to the stage of Manjima. That's going on all the time. You're getting pulled back by your attachments. And you're trying to get free from them. Then you get steady, and then you start to. And then once ruchi comes in, that's when the fun starts. That's when it starts to become spontaneous. It's like on Sankirtan, you got 8 hours to do Sankirtan, and the mind's like, 8 hours, 8 hours. How long do I have to do this for? Then somebody comes along and they're really, really nice. The first 20 minutes is crucial on Sankirtan. You're trying to meet somebody really nice at that time because that really breaks you through. Oh, this is amazing. They give a good donation. They take the books. They're going to go and try chanting, Suddenly the whole consciousness has changed. Suddenly it's like, wow, I've only got 7 hours left. And I've got so many nice people that I want to meet, that I want to see, that I want to engage in. So this covering over, this ignorance is something that we're challenged with all the time to break through, and we're very dependent upon Krishna helping us to do that. And then some miracle takes place. We meet somebody and they're really amazing. We become so enlivened, and then we go from having to do Sankirtan to wanting to do it. There's a shift. You suddenly want to do it. You only have to do it until you want to do it, because when you want to do it, then you don't have to do it anymore. You don't have to follow the principles anymore. You don't have to get up for Mangalati anymore. You don't have to be on time to do the service in the morning. You don't have to do anything, because now you want to do everything. So it's changed there's a whole shift in the consciousness cut into your attitude. And if you're wanting and you're eager and you're enthusiastic and you're determined, then Krishna will reciprocate. Krishna will let you know that he's there. Krishna will be very present in your life. He'll feel like he's just going to come walking around the corner. Sometimes when you're in the Dham, I remember I was with Prabhupada Vani and he was sitting at Kusum Sarovar and he said, I really like it here. I just feel like Krishna's going to come walking around the corner any minute. So that's where it should be like, that kind of excited anticipation of Krishna and that faith that he is there and that he can reciprocate. Prabhupada Prana would lend me a book, Power of Positive Thinking, and it's all about, and it's not even chanting or anything other than just prayer. Prayer is such a powerful way to connect. And whenever you have these bad thoughts coming up in your mind about what could happen, you don't let them in. You cut them down with the scythe of prayer. And you just pray and you pray in such a way that you're not praying hoping that this may happen. You're praying with full faith that this is going to happen. Because you're praying for something which is Krishna conscious. So why wouldn't Krishna fulfill your desire? Why wouldn't he want that to happen? Of course he will. Yes, Tabaruku. I'm probably going off the subject. We're carried away there. Yeah, and they worship people like Princess Diane. She wasn't considered a lady of very reputable character, and they were chasing around trying to get more snapshots of her with their latest boyfriend. But as soon as she died in the crash, she was the people's princess. Suddenly they went all sentimental. It was everything is so superficial in terms of how they idolize people. And then the same person they put up on a pedestal, then they knocked him down off the pedestal. Or they've knocked him down off the pedestal, and now they want to put him back up on the pedestal. Yeah, well, everything in the material world is related, isn't it, to the modes of nature? So under the influence of the modes of nature, everything is very precarious. You may consider yourself very nicely situated in society, but you're in amongst people. I was just listening to Srila Prabhupada saying, he was saying, they do not accept Krishna, so they are an animal. They are simply animals, just animals. So if a lot of animals get round another animal and glorify him, then it's of no use. It's just animals praising other animals, but they're all animals. Yes. Forcibly dragged. Yeah. Well, Krishna's impartiality is his external energy. And when you penetrate through that with a sincere desire and you catch Krishna's attention, I think it's in the Nectar of Devotion when someone says, from this day I am yours, then after that the Lord always takes note of him. In fact, Srila Prabhupada says Krishna's got a book, and everyone that does some service, he writes their name in the book. He never forgets after that. So the impartiality, everyone that's taken up devotional service has broken free from that impartiality now. Now Krishna's involved. I think that's in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The sufferings of an orphan child are not the same as the sufferings of a beloved. So once you've initiated that relationship, you may go to the NHS afterward and say, look, I used to be a devotee, but I've had enough now. Can you give me a Paramatma amputation? He's somewhere in there, and he's bugging me like anything. Could you just get him out and put in a test tube somewhere else? You can't do that. So he's always there anyway. Even Kamsa, right? Kamsa, he's going to kill Devaki. And the super soul saying, but what are people going to think of you if you do that, And he's so determined he wants to kill her. And the super soul saying, but you can't do that. I mean, I know you're a bad person, but even you can't do that. So even though he was so against following Krishna, still Krishna came in, and there's this dialogue taking place with him and the super soul, and he's getting talked out of doing it. Oh, I'll have to wait till the baby's born and do it then, Can't kill it right now. So even with an out-and-out demon like Kamsa, still Krishna, when he punched him, he gave him such a wonderful benediction. So we would think that would look like he was being partial, but just see how much he loves everybody if he's prepared to do that with someone like Kamsa. The amount of difficulty Kamsa put Krishna and his devotees into, and Krishna still sees him in a favorable way, still sees some way of looking at the bright side. So that should really encourage us. Wow, if that's what a demon gets, how much more must I be getting then? So it's really, partiality means that you love, partiality, if you said, if the father loves all his children, then that's just okay, isn't it? It's not partial, that's just natural, that's what you would expect. And Krishna loves all his children, and every single part and parcel is his child. He loves them all. So you could say, well, he's partial because he loves, but in one sense he's not, because he loves them all. Every one of them, whether they're trying to go away from him or they're trying to go towards him. And even though he may put some of them in difficult situations, even that is his master plan to bring them. Why not just make them not exist anymore? If they're causing so much problem, why bother with the material world and 14 planetary systems, 1,400,000 species? He's causing a bit of a problem. We're speaking on a picnic here. Okay, doesn't exist anymore. That's fine. Let's get on with the picnic. He doesn't do that. He'll go to so much trouble to facilitate all the different desires and put you on this very slow, sometimes, reformation process to eventually bring you back. Everyone goes back eventually. Of course, as everyone's going back, there's others falling. So there's always somebody in the prison house, but nobody stays in the prison house forever. So in that sense, he's partial to everyone. And that's why it doesn't make sense. It's such a blasphemy to say that God would be happy with only, I don't know how many percent get saved. He would be happy, probably the majority of, creating living entities that are going to suffer eternally, and be okay with that. Isn't that such a blasphemy? That's partiality. That is really bad, Oh, I'm partial to these, and those ones, well, You know, they didn't. So sorry, there's the lake of eternal fire, and that's it. That's such a blasphemy, isn't it? I mean, when I heard that when I was a kid, it put me off. That's why I became an atheist when I heard that. That's not. Krishna's all attractive, all perfect. Even a conditioned soul. He's got children, and some of them, maybe one of them's really bad. Still, he's always looking at ways to try and help that son come back. You know. So he's partial to everyone because he loves everyone, actually. And he seems impartial only due to our inability to appreciate, that's all. And then eventually we appreciate, you know, when you come to that point where you realize, wow, Krishna was doing all this just for my benefit, you know. It was to help me to come to him. And even the gopis were chastising, they were saying, Krishna, you know, it's this, we love you so much and you've turned your back on us, you put us through so much suffering. And he says, I was just increasing your love for me. Everything Krishna's doing is to increase our love for him. Well, there are aspects, aren't there? Lord Chaitanya is in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Radharani is the embodiment of compassion. There are different aspects, and but even when Krishna gets angry, when he comes out the pillar, Ugram, he's very angry when he first comes out. But ultimately, to display of his love for Prahlad, ultimately, he loves Prahlad so much, he's so angry that Hiranyakashipu has put Prahlad through so much difficulty. But it's all a manifestation of love. It's interesting because when Krishna does come down heavy on someone, it turns out that's a benediction as well, because he's all perfect. It just looks, you know, when you're getting punched to death in the wrestling arena, it just looks really intense. But from Kamsa's point of view, he was going into some amazing situation. You know? Yeah. So that's why it's important to associate with devotees, stay in the association of devotees. And I've noticed when devotees do leave the association of devotees, they lose track of time, and then suddenly, because they may be thinking in the back of their mind, I'll take this up again in the future, you know. And then like 20 years, we had one devotee here. It was like 20 years. We were out in Sankirtan. We got nabbed by the police in Clydebank, and it really shook him up, and he thought, oh, I'm just going to take a step back from Krishna consciousness. This is a bit too intense. And then we didn't see him for like 20 years, and he just, I don't know what happened. Just one thing led to another, and I kept going to get back into it, and then suddenly he just click back in, you know. So it's really important to stay in the association of devotees. And actually, not just in the sense of being in the proximity of the devotees, but in the association of devotees, Guyam Akati Prichati, and revealing your darkest, innermost secrets in amongst at least one or two chosen devotees. That's in the association of devotees. Otherwise, it's just kind of in the club, in the devotee club with the devotees, sitting at the same table, eating prasadam with the devotees. That's not really association. Always means that you're opening up your heart. You have a very transparent relationship, and then you're protected. And Krishna wants to see also how devotees relate to other devotees. That's his kind of test also to see. He says, Apichatsu Darachara, if you deride a devotee for having some problem, some difficulty, then you're directly disobeying the injunctions of the Lord. Not if you're having a problem, that's Krishna's okay with that. It's if you're deriding someone that's having a problem, Krishna's not okay with that. Because material energy is strong, Krishna knows that better than anybody else. But you can't use that as an excuse when you're deriding somebody, because you're going out of your way to do that. You don't have to. You know, it may be out of your control if the material energy tempts you. So that's understandable. Krishna can accept that. But you can't justify going out of your way to deride a devotee that's had some difficulty. And if you do that, then you're in a worse situation than the devotee that's having the difficulty in terms of your relationship with Krishna. You know, Krishna is not okay with that. So when we had some problems with the big leaders, and they had problems, and everyone's like, you know, but that's between the big leader and Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. But then you've got more of a problem because you've started to criticize. So you're in real hot water. What was the question again? Oh, Prana was saying, you're probably making the point, yeah, about being in the association of devotees that are more advanced. Yeah. Yeah, it's a real art. Prabhupada said, you'll show your love by how you cooperate. If you're not going to cooperate and say you love Srila Prabhupada, you've just contradicted yourself. So one or the other. You love Prabhupada, you cooperate. You're not going to cooperate, you don't love Prabhupada. Yes, Govinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Go pray Nandi Haribol. All of you, ki jai.